Thanks for tuning in to the Bring Joy podcast. We're in season 5 and it's all about baseball. Talking big leagues to the little leagues, Yankees to the Conchs, and everything in between. I'll share my joy for the game with you. And whether you're a fan of baseball or good storytelling, you'll be entertained. And each episode will bring a little joy to your day. So sit back and relax. Let's do this thing. How we doing, baseball fans? We're in for a good one today. I'm excited to talk baseball with Coach Joey Gonzalez, head coach of one of the hottest baseball programs in South Florida, the Marathon Dolphins. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with you today.
Very good, very good. So that's not an overstatement, right? To say that Marathon's one of the hottest programs in South Florida?
I respect you highly for saying that. You know, I think we're finally getting to the point here in Marathon where we're earning the respect of a lot of these South Florida teams, and we're trying to work our way into that top tier, no doubt. I think this year was definitely a step in the right direction, and we look to continue just building up and getting into that top level there for sure. So I think we're moving along that line, no doubt.
All right, very good. Yeah. And part of being a winning program is owning it too, right?
Absolutely.
And yeah, the last 2 years, you all have won the conference championship, and 2025 was historically successful. You won the district tournament, district champs. You end up hosting regional tournament as well. So, I mean, you're coming off a high, no doubt. I know that high school baseball networks in South Florida were talking about you. I saw Marathon on several top 20 lists. So it's happening.
It is. You know, it's still kind of surreal. You know, me as a former high school baseball player in Marathon and coming up through the system and never really being a part of a winning program throughout my high school days. It's a lot of fun to see this full circle moment of just being able to lead and guide our boys and see the year-long investment, what we didn't have for so many years in the past. And now we're starting little by little to enjoy that success that we're putting so much work forward to get to.
Congratulations on your success. You definitely got everyone paying attention and talking about Marathon baseball, myself included. I mentioned before we started recording, I need to get me a Marathon hat.
Yeah, we'll get you hooked up.
I look good in blue. I look good in red, but I look good in blue too.
I think you could pull it off from time to time.
I got to get up there and watch a couple games before I can earn that hat, though. But, you know, we're here at the end of June. You've had a little more than a month, actually, to process the 2025 season. How would you summarize like I said, the historically successful year?
I think in one word, and I mentioned that word just a few minutes ago, is surreal. It's really surreal, the path that we took to get to that district title this year. Anybody that knows Marathon baseball and understands how we build our program, they understand that we are typically a very young squad, and we weren't by any stretch of the word old this season. We only had 5 seniors. We were heavy in the lower level in terms of 9th and 10th graders, and the beauty of Marathon baseball is that we build our kids from 6th grade on up. We're all on one campus, so we kind of get that feeder group, and we mesh them together with our older guys. And we started that from day one last year, and we got those young kids who we see as future guys here in our program, and we started to mold and build, and next thing you know, we have 3 or 4 of those younger guys starting on our varsity program and eating up big innings on the mound, getting spot starts defensively. And they were huge contributors to what we were able to accomplish this year. You know, we didn't start off as hot as I wanted to, but that was all right. You know, we faced some adversity. We had a couple really good teams on our schedule early on, and I think we got out to a 2-3 start. So it wasn't the best 5-game stretch I wanted to start the season, but it was a great test to see how the young ones especially, were going to react and overcome that little hiccup, you know, early on. And from that point forward, we kind of hit our stride, and it seemed like we were winning every week. We weren't necessarily sweeping every week, but we were at least grabbing 2 out of 3 every week that we were on the field. And one thing led to the next, and we were right there playing for a district title against a really good team, and we were able to pull it off there at the end.
Yeah, and the city Marathon, I hear, was popping. I know as the season went on and you guys started stacking wins like you were referring to, the stands were getting more packed every game, I'm sure.
Absolutely, yeah. It was really exciting. Our boys feed off of that energy, just like Key West. We're a small town, and we all love each other. We all know each other, and we're all invested for the same reason. We want to see our young kids do well and be successful. And like you said, as we started winning ball games, Friday nights went from 150 to 300, and then we win the district title and we host regionals. We have to call the local parks to bring in more bleachers. We had 600 people. It was just something that hasn't been seen at Marathon, frankly, ever. And I've been around the program for 20 years, and I've never seen the crowds like we had this year. It was a lot of fun, and the boys earned it. They earned every bit of that.
And how proud does that make you feel as an alumni of Marathon High School of the program? How proud is that for you? And then also to see your boys, they must be like celebrities around town.
It's to me, it's everything. This is what I dreamt of when I took over the program. I didn't take over the program just to go through the motions and just be another regular coach who just is there from January to May. I took over the program to make a lasting impact and to make baseball relevant in town again. And I think we're finally getting to that point where we have an 8U, we have a 10U, we have a 12U, we have a middle school, we have a JV, we have a varsity. We finally have the ladder that you need to be successful. And our boys at the top, my coaching staff, I think we've built that, and now the younger kids are playing year round, and it's just a really beautiful thing to see that what we got going on right now.
It's an exciting time, and it seems like they got the right guy at the helm. So
Appreciate that.
you mentioned, I think you say you have 5 seniors.
Yes, ma'am.
Are any of them going on and playing ball at the next level?
So this group of seniors was probably the most unique group of seniors that I've ever coached in my entire life. I've been around the program obviously my whole life, but coaching between assistant and varsity head coach about 12 years now, and by far the most unique group of guys. I'll start with the academic side because that in itself is remarkable. And me as a teacher at the high school, I think it's very important to mention academics first. This group of five had an average GPA of 4.25. So they were all
You
stellar
said
students.
4.25.
4.25 average across the board for all five of those young men. Exactly. So we started talking recruiting in their junior year. They were kind of unsure because they were so academic driven. And we got to the point in the recruiting process where 3 out of my 5 were offered the opportunity to play at the next level. Mason, my tall right-handed pitcher who grew into his own and became my ace there towards the end of the season. And then the Leo brothers, who many from down south know, Coach Lewis Leo, who I took over for. He was my head coach, is a state champion from Key West in the class of '98. His boys were also afforded the opportunity to play at the next level. They went on their visits. They did all of those fun things, and it didn't work out on the baseball side because of how academically driven these 3 young men were. One of them had a full academic opportunity at UMass, which is where his home state was in Massachusetts, Mason. And he went forth and took that academic opportunity because his goal and dream was to go back home. And I've got to tip my cap to that and just respect that. You know what I mean? And the twin brothers, same situation. But again, one chose a better package academically at Florida Atlantic, and then our other twin brother is going to be pursuing the fire department, and he's already done his first 2 years within the high school, so he's going to stay local, and he's got all of that covered as well. So in short, none of them are going on to play ball. 3 had a great opportunity to play at the next level, but takes nothing away from what those young men are going to accomplish in their lives.
No, absolutely. And being able to play ball at the next level is one path to get there, but it's not necessarily about playing ball, right? You use
Exactly.
baseball to get to college and to continue your education and opportunity. And it sounds like you have some really talented young men. And that kind of student athlete,
Hmm.
it's got to be a coach's dream.
It is. I mean, having such a young group of guys and having such leadership at the top, such strong leadership at the top, it sets the tone and it trickles down to the rest of those kids who look up to them. The eighth graders moving into ninth grade say, "Wow, they're graduating with a 4.2. If I'm a good ball player and I have good grades, I have the best of both worlds. I can put it all together." You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So there's no doubt that they were tremendous leaders for us.
I'm glad that you mentioned Luis Leo because I watched him play when he was a boy. And he was a hell of a ball player. And
No
then
doubt.
keeping up with his two boys and seeing the success that they had at Marathon, I know that that had to be special. And he's still a big part of Marathon athletics, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm glad you brought him back up because Coach Leal is a full circle moment for me. He is the only baseball coach that I've ever had in my life. He was my middle school coach.
Got the chills.
He was my high school coach. He was my mentor. He was everything that a high school student would look for in a coach. It was Louis Leal. And when I went off to college, obviously we stayed in contact because we're family. You know, we're not blood, but we're family. And he knew my goals, and he knew my dream was to come back home and teach, and eventually get my foot into the baseball program. So he, as soon as I returned and got hired by the Monroe County School District, he started mentoring me again on a more adult professional level, and kind of took me under his wing, brought me in as his assistant, gave me the head middle school coaching position, and gave me a few years to get my feet wet with the middle school program. And then when his kids hit our middle school, he was ready to take a step back and become a parent. And that was in our plans. And he told me, he said, listen, it's your time to shine. I've groomed you up from the time you were 12 years old. Now my kids are 12 years old, and I'm ready for you to lead them to their graduation and to their next step in their careers. And it gives me the chills talking about it, because now those kids are like my own. And wouldn't you know it, they both just graduated, and Louis Leo was in the stands watching me coach them.
That's beautiful. I had chills and now I get tears in my eyes. It's my podcast is all about the joys of baseball and how much joy it brings. That story you just told is a classic, and
Yeah, no,
that's what it's all about. And that's the other
absolutely,
thing, right? Beyond the game, when the more you stay in baseball and talk to baseball people, you realize how many threads there are that connect us. And I think that's really special. Thank you for
no
sharing
doubt.
that. Hopefully he's watching this episode.
And if he's not, we'll make sure to get him the link for sure. I know he tunes in.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So you talked about student athletes. You mentioned already that you're a teacher. Talk about that. You are a teacher and an instructor. What do you teach? And you realize what an opportunity you have to impact so many young people.
Yeah, absolutely. I take joy in teaching at the high school, and having the opportunity to interact not only with my students but with my athletes on a different level daily. So to touch on what I do, I am the going into my 10th year of teaching. I'm the 11th and 12th grade ESOL teacher and the ESOL contact for our entire school, 6 through 12. I initially started as the ESOL teacher for our entire high school, 9th through 12th grade, which, for those of you who don't know what ESOL is, it's basically our immigrant population, all of our non-native English speakers. So kids from Cuba, Puerto Rico, all over the globe, not United States. I work with them to get to graduation and to teach them English. And recently, as we had a larger influx of immigrants, they brought on a couple more ESOL teachers to help ease the load for myself. And I'm able to now focus specifically on our 11th and 12th graders, our older kids, and help them get to that finish line and pursue either college or the workforce, but get them to that high school diploma, and just see them successful in life beyond high school. So that's what I do.
That's doing a lot for your community and for those young lives. I saw something on social media recently where you
Mhm.
were congratulating one of your former students who I believe he's in the track
Yes, yeah.
running track and having a lot of success at the college level. And I just thought it was so cool how proud you were of him, not as his former coach, but as his former teacher. It's really
Exactly.
special.
Yeah, no, that's one of my, I would say, top three coaching slash teaching moments I've ever had in my 10 years at Marathon. That was an unbelievable experience. So I'll just touch on that
Please,
briefly. His name
please.
his name is Pedro, and he arrived to us as a super shy immigrant student. His 10th grade year, he barely knew how to say hello in English. Came over from Venezuela with his mother. His dad was already here for some time, so he was able to get them over legally through the process. And he came to me, and of course I was the first one to greet him at the high school because I'm the one who intakes our immigrant students, and I test them and I give them their evaluation and see where they're going to be placed. And of course he didn't know any English, so he landed with me. And he immediately said, "Mr. Gonzalez, I'm a soccer player. I'm excited to be able to join the soccer team." And mind you, it was early September, 2 months out from soccer. I'm like, all right, well, I'm the assistant cross country coach at the time, so there's no better way to get you in shape for soccer than to throw you on the cross country team and see what you're made of. So we did that, and one thing led to the next. He became this unbelievable runner, distance for cross country, made it to states with the team his first year, participated in soccer, enjoyed his time in soccer, but absolutely fell in love with the running. Then he did track during the spring season, became a three-time, now we'll fast forward to 12th grade, became a three-time state participant for cross country.
Excellent.
My wife and I took him on a recruiting trip up to Alabama. We flew him out. He got an invite to the national running tournament, and his goal was to run under a 17-minute 5K. We had been in contact with Daytona State, which is the most elite junior college for running in the state of Florida and pretty much in the whole southeastern region. And the head coach, Joy Wilson is her name. She told me, she said, if we could get him under a 16:45 at the national tournament, he's got a scholarship. So we did that. We got him at a 16:41, and he went on to Daytona. And fast forward a couple years, he's running at FIU on an athletic scholarship to finish up his career.
That's big time. That's big time. Thank you for sharing that. I saw something online, and I had no idea how much influence you had on him. So again, your opportunity to impact in the community, and from the classroom to the ball field, really makes a difference. Speaking of coaching, do I see that you coach t-ball in Little League?
I do. This year was my first year. I did. I was the spearhead for my daughter's t-ball team. My daughter's 6 years old, going into the first grade, and of course, how can I say no to that? How can I say no to that when I'm around all of these kids all day long who aren't blood to myself, but then I tell my daughter, no, I'm not going to coach your t-ball team. There was no way of doing that. So right smack dab in the middle of our varsity baseball season, I found some time and went out and coached t-ball for my daughter. It was a absolute blast.
That's fantastic. What's one of the fundamental skills that you teach in Little League that the player can take with them to the high school field?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the main focus for our young ones, because it was a very young t-ball team. We had fourth, fifth, or 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, and some right on the cusp of 6. So a lot of them just for the first time putting a glove on their
Yeah.
hand. Yeah, so I mean, we were just teaching the fundamentals of what foot to step with, how to throw, how to break down for ground balls, and some of them even further back, what base to run to after you put the bat on the ball. So it was a lot of fun just teaching them the basics, and I think they learned a ton. We went from kids chasing balls after they hit it off the tee to kids running all the way around, and our pitcher fielding it and stepping and throwing to first. So it was a good time, good experience.
That's awesome. What's your daughter's name?
My daughter, her name is Gabriella, and I have a little boy who he's going into pre-K. He's 4 years old. His name is Adrian. And my wife's we're expecting number 3 in September. So
Congratulations.
thank you. We'll be a family of 5 real soon.
Yeah, you're working on your own team.
Yeah, working on my own little squad, but that's it. Five of us total, and we're good to go.
That's plenty. So is it harder to coach 5-year-olds or 15-year-olds?
I think it's a healthy balance. I think they both come with their challenges. The 15-year-olds you got to deal with. Sometimes you got to put some egos in check, and you got to balance the academics with that as well. And it's more of a task. Where with the 5-year-olds, it's more of like an attention thing. Hey, stop playing with the grass. Get out of the dirt. Stop picking your nose. We got a game to play.
That's good stuff. I love it.
Yeah.
Speaking of your daughter, and women's sport is blowing up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm starting to pay more attention to softball. Really cool that there's opportunity for girls to keep playing beyond high school as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, no, my daughter's taken a little liking to running as well. So that's we'll see where that leads her. You know, me with a that small window of cross country in my background. It'd be fun to see if she takes that up. We were actually up at Disney last week for a little family trip, and I was doing my morning jogs around the lake by the hotel, and she's like, "Daddy, I want to get up early with you and do a lap around the lake." So she got up. Mom was sleeping in with my son, and we took a little mile jog at 6 years old. So I think we might have a little runner in our future.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a good athlete. So you mentioned you were an athlete at Marathon. What position did you play and how good were you?
Yeah, I don't. I was a left-handed pitcher and I was a first baseman, primarily first base my entire career. And then we had a need my junior year to for somebody to come in and eat up some innings. So I started developing a little bit more as a pitcher. I didn't throw too hard. I was an upper 78 to 81 guy with a couple decent pitches. I just threw a lot of strikes. I didn't fall behind too much. I was just one of those guys who would give you 7 innings on 75 pitches, and sometimes we'd win, sometimes we'd lose, but I was sure to get you 80% strikes. So I like to tell my guys, it's not about how hard you throw the ball, it's about how confident you are and how accurate you throw. And it's and luckily the shift has changed from when I used to play. Now we've got a few guys who are living in that culture of getting that velo and learning how to do it healthy in the right way. So we're finally getting to that point where we have a bunch of hard throwers, and now we're just working on getting that command that I emphasize to them so much. So I was a decent ball player. I think I was a 340 guy offensively my senior year, and it was different. It was a lot different when we played. We played because we enjoyed our time out there, and it was tough to play for championships. We had Westminster Christian, Florida Christian, all of those at the time, those recruiting powerhouses, year in and year out. So it was really tough to swallow that every year, knowing that you'd have to see that at the end of the season, and we didn't have the talent that we have now. So we enjoyed our time out there for sure, but what we've got now is just a completely different breed for sure.
So let's talk about that a little bit because I see that following the Key West Conks, we get to a certain point and you're going to run up on these private schools that are recruiting all these players. And
Yep.
it makes it real hard to compete and it can be frustrating. Marathon's a smaller school. I know you guys are in a class they call the
The rural class.
royal class. And so, how do you find the competition? Is it a even playing field?
So this is obviously this past season was the first year that the rural classification was formed, and it's very interesting. I'm glad you brought that up because, like I said, for so long, marathon baseball, we we would hit a brick wall at the end of the regular season. First round of districts, we would hit a brick wall, and we knew with this rural classification, we had the opportunity to get through that first round. Now, there are some unbelievably talented teams in the rural classification when you get beyond that first round. In the past, that first round was where we were done. Now I think for a very long time we're going to be able to get our way through that first round and compete for district titles. But as soon as we get through that first round, you're going to have to bring your A game because you've got Fort Meade on the other end, and that's the team who we saw 4 different times this year. We beat them in the title. Fort Meade was a top 100 across the entire state, all seven divisions all year long. They were top 5 in our rural classification all year long. So once you get beyond that first round, the competition is just like any other big name private school opponent that you'd play. So in short, getting to that point, although it may be a little bit easier, getting through that point, you're still going to have one hell of a squad to get through that point.
Yeah, it's challenging as a fan because I followed the Lady Conk softball team and they ran into the same thing.
Yep.
You get so far and then you run into that school who has recruits from not only all over South Florida but some pull from other countries and everything. So
Yep.
not to have sour grapes, right? It is what it is. You've got to put your best team on the field and compete.
And
But
that's
it
and
is
that's all there
disheartening.
is to it.
What do you think about the 3 game series? How did that work out for you as a coach? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for us, we were on the short end of the 3 game series. But in my opinion, a 3 game series proves your best team.
I agree.
There's been so many times where a mediocre middle of the road team has had one horse on the mound and has been able to ride that horse all the way down to the end. And that wasn't the case this year. We had a couple guys that could really throw strikes, but we ran into a Fort Meade who had three guys who were 88, one guy who ran it up to 90, and they were the better team this year. We got the best of them in the district title game. It was a small, scrappy game where we were able to squeak out a 2-1 win, and we won a district title, and we're not going to take that away at all. But in a three-game series, you tip your cap. They had three upper 80s guys, and they deserved to win that series because they outpitched and outperformed us. So I think this year and hopefully moving forward, not only does it give our boys an opportunity to play more games, but it gives the team the opportunity to show who's the deepest come postseason, which is ultimately what you want to see. You want to see what team has the most to offer at the end of the season.
Right, right. It was tough traveling as a fan following your team,
Yeah,
right? Even as a fan, it's hard to get up and go and keep going.
absolutely.
Your marathons 50 miles north of Key West, so you have those same travel challenges. Talk about that a little bit. How's that add to the pressure of your program from a funding standpoint, from a fan standpoint? Talk about that.
100%. This is a really good point you bring up because not many programs other than Key West and Marathon High School understand what it takes to pull off a season full of travel. Key West is fortunate enough that they are able to host a ton of games. They have an unbelievable facility and just their history of Key West baseball. Who doesn't want to go down there and play at Rec Suites? But for us, we still split. We play 12 home, 12 away typically. And people don't realize it's a 12-month fundraising commitment as a coach and as a program. You have to have tens of thousands of dollars to be able to pull off these travel days. Even the one day where you go up to Miami, play at 5 o'clock, and you're back home at midnight. It's still a $4,000 or $5,000 event if you're taking a charter bus. People don't realize the amount of money it takes to pull these things off, let alone now in our rural classification where we want to see our district opponents and we have to go 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours to play these district opponents. You're staying in a hotel 1, 2, 3 nights, 3 times a year. You need 40 or 50,000 fundraising to pull those efforts off, and it's a very, very tough task. But I think that's what makes our programs, both of our programs, so unique is that we understand the commitment it takes to be able to pull that off.
And you really have to tip your caps to the community and your business partners that help support, because when you're talking about that kind of money, that's a
It
big
is.
investment,
It
and
is.
we're fortunate. Go ahead.
Coming from such a small community, it feels like sometimes you're asking the same generous business donors over and over and over, and they will never tell you no because they know how essential it is to the growth of the program. So it's like you said, Joe, you have to just respect every community member that puts their hand in making this possible because they're the ones who do it year in and year out. The banner fundraisers, this, that, the plaque sales, the dinners, the car washes, they're there every step of the way.
And those are I was just going to add to that. We're fortunate to come from such tight knit communities,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Where
Absolutely.
we show up and support our kids, especially support each other. But when it comes to Keys kids, there's a lot of support behind those programs. Talking about tip your cap, I'm listening to you talk about the amount of hours on the road with your players, and got to tip your cap again to your kids who did so well in school. Being on the road, playing the game, and then turning around and driving back home and going to school the next morning, and for your kids to have the success they did in the classroom, that's something special.
Absolutely. I think it makes it a little bit easier for our kids to understand the importance of academics when their head coach and their assistant coach, which is my brother, we're both school teachers at Marathon. It's me at the high school level, him at the middle school level, spearheading our younger kids, which some of them travel with our varsity as well. They understand, doesn't matter if we're home at midnight. You've got to, on our way back from our game, I don't care if we won by 10 or we lost by 10, your Chromebook is open. You're knocking out your homework. And when you get home, you're going to bed, and at 7:15 when the bell rings, we're going to see your faces in class because it's a reflection of us and our program. So they buy into knowing that, wow, my coaches are also teachers, and if they don't set the standard for us, it's gonna make them look bad as well. So we've got to respect the fact that they are mature enough to see that, which is huge.
Talk about you. You mentioned your brother and your coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
You all have roots, deep roots in the Keys and Marathon. And
Mm-hmm.
how does that add to the quality of your program that you and your staff are part of it?
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. I think we've put together what I would call a power team in terms of our coaching staff. We've got Coach Leo. You can't leave him out. He's our athletic trainer, and he's got a hand in everything we do. We've got my dad at the very top as the head of our booster program. Who, for those of you who don't know, my dad is a Key West baseball state champion from the class of '84 as well.
I had that on my list, so I'm glad
Yeah,
you
there
brought
you
it
go.
up. Let's go.
There you go. I've got my brother who's my right hand man. He's my first base coach. He's my analytical guy. He's the guy up here who doesn't talk much, but he dissects a lot of the things that I don't necessarily catch during the course of a game. Who's also an alumni from the class of 2010 at Marathon High School. We have my strength and conditioning coordinator, who is the owner of our local gym here in Marathon, Coach Chris Cook. He spearheads all of our strength, our off-season workouts, our in-season workouts, our keeping our kids healthy, giving them the nutritions that they need, the way to eat, the way to go about their lifting. Also a former Marathon High School graduate who from the early 2000s who played at Jacksonville University after high school. And then we've got Coach Kyle Pierce, who's our pitching coach, which is a very familiar name down south as well. He was a former Marathon, born and raised. And then, of course, we had the few years where Marathon baseball was, on a down, and he went down south and got a couple really successful seasons down at Key West before going on and playing at the Division II level as well. And then Coach Chad O'Rourke, who his son was Mason, our pitcher who just graduated, and he's been our tech guy. He's just been our anything we need type guy. He just oversees everything, kind of like my dad, and financially has been a huge booster and supporter for the program. So we definitely can't leave him out.
And it comes to mind. It takes a village, right?
It does. It does. It's not a one man show. It's not a 2-man show. You need a group of guys all pulling on the same side of the rope that are in it for the right reason.
Well, it sounds like you have a great crew. And is everybody coming back for the 26th
Everybody,
season?
everybody's coming back since so when I took over, this will be my 7th season as the varsity head coach. It was myself, my brother, my dad, who's now the head of the booster, Coach Leo, and Coach Chad came in my second year when Mason moved into town. And then as we started seeing slow successes, Coach Kyle finished college. He jumped on board. We brought him in. And my third year, we brought Coach Chris, our strength coordinator. And all 6 of us have been pushing in this direction together and don't plan on slowing that anytime soon.
I love it. And I see that your boys are out there working, putting in
Yep.
work in the weight room, working in the cages. What is
Yep.
a summer program and what is a goal of a summer program?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're like I alluded to a little while ago. We're young. We're gonna be young again. I have one senior returning next year, and my core group of guys are going to be incoming juniors, and they're extremely, extremely, extremely talented ball players. But we knew losing 3 major power bats. We had 3 guys that are graduating, 3 out of our 5 that together had 95 base hits and hit an average the 3 of them of 365. So that's a hard thing to replace. So we knew getting these younger guys in the weight room was on the forefront, and getting some muscle on these guys, and just getting back to the basics. We have a couple of our real talented kids off playing summer ball. Dylan Williams, who's up near the upper 80s range right now on the mound, playing on the Scorpions scout team. And a couple of our young guys are down south with you guys doing a lot of travel. And Reef Rella, he's playing on the Padres scout team. So we've got different pieces moving around, but we all come together when we're in town, and we get a 3-day-a-week lifting session, which is baseball specific lifts led by Coach Chris Cook, our strength coordinator. We do that at 8 a.m. We go for about an hour and a half, and then we do about an hour and a half on the field after that. We get our long toss session. We get our bullpen in. We get our cage work in for the guys who aren't throwing pens, and we go about 3 hours. We go through it for about a 3 hour cycle, 3 to 4 days a week, and then the days that we're not grouped together, all the kids have Coach Chris's 24-hour gym code, and they go in and do team lifts together. So I think we've got a nice system, and we've got our core group of 12 to 15 bought in all summer, which we're super excited about.
It sounds like you got all the right things happening, and you got kids that are willing to put in the work to make it happen. Not getting too far.
That's the difference, That's the difference from what marathon baseball used to be and what marathon baseball is becoming. Is you nailed it. We can preach it all we want. We can ask the kids all we want, but they've got to show up. And we've got 15 kids showing up every day, waking up at 6:30 in the morning on their summers off to show up at 7:45 and get their lift and get their practice. And that's all you could ask for as a coach.
Speaking of coach, and what a coach asks for, what makes a good baseball player?
What makes a good baseball player? Discipline. Very simple.
What we're
Very
talking
simple.
about right now.
Discipline. You have to have goals, and you have to have goals. You have to have goals that are realistic, and you have to have goals that might be tough to reach. But you've got to lay a path to get to both of those realistic goals, and you've got to lay a path to get to those goals that are hard to attain. And if you are not disciplined and you don't take every single step in that path to get to those goals, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I have a young man who's coming into the 11th grade who embodies the word discipline. He's a kid who didn't see much action his 10th grade year. He's got a great arm. He's got a developing fastball. He threw about 15 innings for us and did a really good job. But he came up to me at the end of the year and he said, "Coach, I want to be a top of the rotation guy." And I told him, I said, "Listen, we're getting to the point in our program where we've got to develop and we've got to be disciplined. And it can't just be a January to May commitment. It has to be a 12-month commitment." And he asked me, he said, "What do I do?" I said, "You take it upon yourself to become disciplined." I laid it out there. I said, you can hang up the cleats right now and pick them up again in December, January, or you can lace them up in a week after we get over our elimination loss in the Sweet 16 and put your nose down and get to work. And he's evolving unbelievably. He's in the weight room 5 days a week. He's driving up to West Palm and he's doing Cressy pitching clinics twice a week up at the Cressy facility. I saw videos of Jacob Burnham there and a couple other Key West alum down up there. He's doing all of the things that we told him to do that take discipline. He's sacrificing time on the water, sacrificing time on the sandbar because he knows what he wants and he knows what it's going to take to get there. So that I think that one word, discipline, is what makes a good ball player for sure.
Nicely done, Coach. So I have this new thing I want to try out to wrap up an episode to end on a segment called For the Cycle. All right.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you 4 questions.
Yeah.
All right. They get harder as we go. Right.
Okay.
All right. So let me see. Let me find them here. You ready?
I think so. You can't make me look crazy now.
No. We're good. I have confidence. You're gonna be good at this. What's your favorite besides Marathon Dolphins? What's your favorite baseball team?
Unfortunately, the Miami Marlins. Unfortunately.
Hey, they broke my heart so many times.
I don't know how I keep going back to them. I really don't. But
Listen, Bubba, it's the worst relationship I ever had in my life is with the Marlins.
it is awful. Absolutely awful.
Right.
But it's our hometown team and we got to show up when we're only one of 4,000 people in the stands.
No, when I was a kid, like your dad, Florida didn't have a team. And so at least you grew up in a time where Florida and now the Miami Marlins exist. But yeah, you got to be tough to be a Marlin fan. So tip my hat to you on that one. And no shame, because that shows you got plenty heart. All right. Best baseball movie ever.
I love The Sandlot.
Oh, that's mine too, Coach.
I am a Sandlot guy through and through. I'm not a movie guy, but when I kick back and I watch a movie, I find myself watching The Sandlot.
That's number 1. I love it. All right. You've talked a little bit about this earlier.
Mm-hmm.
How important is analytics to baseball and to matching the needs of our current athletes that are inundated with data?
I think analytics in today's game play a big part. If we don't stay up on the analytics, we're gonna fall behind, and that's the bottom line, because everybody around you is using analytics to move their game to a different level. And I found it challenging this year. This was our first year taking that step to the more analytical side. We got our Rapsodo, we got our pitch calling through PitchCom, and making that adjustment, making that move from that more old school look to that new school, breaking down data and through a machine more so than just out of a hand. It does evolve your program in ways that you wouldn't really think about when you look at it from a further distance away. So I do think analytics, it has to have a healthy balance though. I think there's still important components of getting to the basics of what old school baseball is, but you still have to mesh both of them together, because if not, you're going to get left behind.
Very good answer on that one. All right, this is the last one. This is the hard one for the cycle.
All right.
What's a life lesson that baseball has taught you?
A life lesson that baseball has taught me: don't get too high and don't get too low. Don't get too high and don't get too low.
That's a mic drop.
For me as a player, I enjoyed my baseball career. I knew that beyond high school, I had other goals, and I was honest with myself, and I knew that baseball probably wasn't going to be in the equation post high school, other than what I did with my club team at FGCU and things of that nature. A lot of these kids that we coach on a daily basis are in the same situation. You have a small group of kids who are elite, who are going to move on, and who are just diehard and extremely passionate and take everything that they do to a different level. But I think that the overarching message for all of our young athletes, especially our baseball players, is just to not get too high when the good is good, and not get too low when the bad is bad. Because if you go out and you're throwing a gem, but you strike out 3 times offensively, you can't let those 3 strikeouts get to you, because you still got to put your team on your back on the other side of the ball. So you've got to find a balance where you stay level-headed, and the task at hand is greater than the few errors or the few kickballs or the few strikeouts that you had. So don't get too high, don't get too low, for sure.
Good one, Coach. I loved it. All your answers. Well done. That was my first time to try that. I think I'm gonna.
I like that.
You set the bar high. I really enjoyed our conversation, Coach. I've been paying attention from afar. I promise you this: I'm gonna have you back on the show when it comes closer to the 2026 season. I want to hear all about it. But also, bigger than that, I'm going to get in the stands and watch you and your boys go at it. I'm a big fan, Coach. Thank you.
Love it. Thank you so much, and I'm here anytime you want to grab me. Just shoot me a text, give me a call. I think we're unique down here in the Keys. For too long, people have looked at us as 2 separate entities, 2 separate programs. They look at us as a Marathon versus Key West, and let's be honest, we're 2 different programs, but we're all pushing in the same direction. I told my boys, we need to go support Key West in their regional game. We need to go do these things because we are one group. And I have a lot of my young guys who work their way up as young kids with you guys before they get to me. So I think it's only right that we respect each other and that we push each other and we support each other the best way possible. And you coming up and being in the stands next year would be absolutely huge for me. And so many of my boys know you through social media, and they would absolutely love to see that. So I appreciate that.
I'll make it happen. And I love being able to meet some of your players at the playoffs, at the Rex. It was really cool to see them. They probably thought I was crazy because I wanted to take their picture and get their autographs and all that. But that's what I do. I'm a fan, right? I can't help myself.
They came up to me right away. They knew exactly who you were. Don't worry. They knew exactly who you were.
Well, that's good stuff, and I know who they are, and I want to watch them play. So thank you again for being here, Coach. We'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Go baseball.
Go baseball.
I'm Joy Newlish, and I appreciate you tuning into my podcast. My purpose is to bring joy into my life and the lives of others. If you enjoyed this episode, drop a review, share, and subscribe because there's a lot of good stuff on tap. You can also follow Bring Joy on YouTube and Instagram, or check my website at joynoodles.com. Now go bring joy to the people in your world. Until next time, much love.